I'm alive. Welcome to our whatever number this is board meeting. We've been talking for the last few weeks doing the foundational documents, collective foundational documents ourselves, going through values and mission, vision. And although we came up with a fairly good concrete what those things are in bold in the foundational document, the talking it through helps. And then when we go on to the currencies, we know that those things will change based on what we come up with during while we're doing the rest. And we have Raymond here, who joined us a couple weeks ago as well. The person who's foundational is the person who created the foundational documents, the protocol.love, how we do these foundational documents, here to help through that process. So that's awesome. And Bentley has just moved, so he's not on camera today, but we'll be joining in as well. So where we go from here. So Raymond, do you have our foundational agreement, the one it's in the private chat on the side? That's one we've been working through. So you can see we've kept in gray all of the things we kind of went through. And then the one that we have currently is the one kind of more in bold. So our vision is a world where abundant resources are available to pro-omni-win projects. Our mission, expanding the adjacent possible. We have community, mentorship, camaraderie, relationships, and pedagogy. If I said that right. Knowledge commons, funding and money, and then shared resources. We spent a while defining what omni-win was, who does it all include, and what does win mean, and what does omni mean.
That's
What our
important.
values are, although I don't know, we kind of had a two different, if you were here or if you weren't here, Raymond. We're like, if you're not here, we'll see what we can do through currency. If you're here, you're more of an expert in the currencies that are not the regular currency.
Yeah. Cool. Well, in reading this, I mean, just the initial feedback is which is going to be, it's not just feedback for the sake of saying it. It's feedback because it's going to be useful in the other sections, as you were mentioning, to have the mission I still don't know what you actually plan to do, just in reading what I see here.
Yeah, I will say, with the mission being expanding the adjacent possible, personally, I find that too vague, because that's really just saying take the next step. But the next step in what? Just always take the next step?
Yeah. It's like, what are you actually going to do?
That wasn't our mission statement, was it?
I don't think it's in that section. I don't think we have a mission statement. We just started a mission list. I'm not sure how. I don't think we.
No. No, I mean the vision. The vision statement explained it.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So how are you going to make abundant resources available to pro-omni-win projects? Would be what you want to answer in the mission as concisely as possible. So I assume.
So it's. Go ahead.
Sorry, it was like community. I assume you mean build community by mentoring, camaraderie, and relationships using Purology or something like that. Maybe that's what's actually. Maybe it's pretty close.
I can't see the document right now, but in there we said, that we were going to have, that we were going to have shared resources. We were going to have a knowledge base. We were going to have mentoring. So where's that sentence?
Well, that's the thing. They're not sentences. I guess that's what's throwing me. I think
the one of those sentences in there has that.
Yes.
That's the sentence that I thought we had highlighted, but apparently we changed it.
So I think we had sentences, and that was, I think that may have been too cleaned up. Yeah, we definitely had some sentences, but I think they weren't. Let's see if I still have them here. No. Yeah, so I think we had went back and sort of tried to come up with what exactly are we trying to do? What's our role in providing a world where abundant resources are available to pro-omni-win projects.
So knowledge commons.
Sorry, go ahead.
We're building a knowledge commons.
Yeah, I think it's to build a community that provides mentorship, camaraderie, and pedagogy. That's my understanding, but of course, feel free to
Yep, I think that.
And if people disagree.
'Cause, I mean, that is why we had it as so complex and then down to expanding the adjacent possible is there's like what we would love to do if we had all the funding and all the people, but we're not doing that because we don't have all the people and all the funding. So it's like keep looking at the adjacent possible, creating those omni-win solutions, which we're already doing. We're already meeting and talking about our projects. And how do we just keep looking for the next piece of that is like how I read this. And after a few, but it should be actually readable, probably not. Everyone reads something differently into it. But there isn't a, direct roadmap on how to get there because it's going to change as we go. It's going to be what is the next adjacent possible that's going to help us get to the next level of our various individual projects.
Cool. Those words sound important. They should be in there. I think.
And that is, I mean, we have down below here, which I think was kind of our mission. The expanding the adjacent possible was like the part at the bottom. And that was to me like our entire mission, but it's not. How does the next person come on and understand all of that we've put, weeks into? It's like expanding the adjacent possible.
Well, here's your first iteration, right? Of the person coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
So this is what you meant, to build community that provides mentorship, to build camaraderie and relationships using pedagogy. That's definitely more cohesive to me. Except I don't know what pedagogy is yet.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's the primary purpose.
Yeah, and I think like those are all different things. Like pedagogy is to learn from your peers, and mentorship is to learn, from sort of, I guess that's more a one-directional-ish, and the camaraderie is just like sort of the relationships and networking. So I think mentorship and pedagogy you could say are similar, but camaraderie is just its own thing, or the relationships or networking. So maybe it's just those two. Maybe it's pedagogy because I think you could say that mentorship is kind of a form of that. It's supposed to be learning from your peers, but I think, when you're an adult, for the most part, even your mentor is still a peer.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it's the community and the pedagogy is like 1/4 of the whole thing. That's not even the main thing. The main thing is
what I
shared
think we're
funding.
doing is we're taking each of these like fragments and turning them into a sentence. So right now we're just focused. Are you seeing the screen right now? So Bentley, are you seeing the screen?
I just think, I mean, we could either have 4 sentences or we could have 1 or 2. I just didn't think we'd need 1 for each. We can expand them out and then shrink them back down.
Well, I think like we're expanding them out so that we can say like, what are we doing with the knowledge commons? Are we creating it? Are we selling it? Are we trying to destroy it? What are we doing with it?
Yeah, and it's, to me, like the expanding the adjacent possible is basically the entire mission. It's just not as, what does that mean? It means building the community to include the next group. It means building the resources so we have more access to information that, like we don't have to each do the same research again and again and again. Like it's building it out from where it's at, right? So, we can't recreate wiki election. We can't recreate Wikipedia, but we can, maybe create a article, right? Like there's something that is from exactly where we are without like visioning the big, beautiful, but like what do we do now without necessarily having that bridge to get from here to there? What is the next adjacent possible?
Right. Okay. Raymond, I have a question about, I guess, all of this, which I guess is like how long term are these supposed to be? Is this supposed to be like just to get started? Is this supposed to be something that the vision and mission wouldn't change throughout the entire course of the organization? What is the...
Yeah, I'd say the goal is really, come up with something that's not gonna change easily or soon, right? A world where abundant resources are available for omni-win projects. So how long does that take to create that, for that world to be real? That's the time frame.
Right, but like, so if that's the vision, then sort of the mission should all go towards that, and that should be, in theory, the vision of the organization the entire time it exists. So it's like it's meant to be sort of as future proof as possible.
Yeah, definitely. That's the goal. And
Okay.
Yeah, and then one of the things I've seen happen in my experience, and that Protocol.love doing this work has helped to design, is when we notice that we're coming to a place sometimes where decisions are getting dicey, where there's like you're getting close. There's like kind of 50-50, kind of 50-50 want to do one thing and 50. Are we actually diverging in mission here? Which is a perfect opportunity to say, let's read the mission statement. Which decision is mostly in line with the mission? Yeah, but I really want to do this. Well, hey, maybe maybe this cell is going to divide now, and we're going to have two organizations with slightly different missions that can work in conjunction with each other. Like, this is the kind of thing that this whole Protocol.love is designed to help ease.
Right. Okay. Because I will say personally, when I think of TogetherTec, one of my main goals, I think to start with, because TogetherTec has no money and no, almost anything. It's really just about sort of being that community and starting to provide some information, maybe some like a group of test cases. But long term, I kind of want it to be like a Game B multinational conglomerate where like it can be the home for any of these projects, whether they're like, sort of pure Game B, world changing or world saving, or just a for-profit project that's okay with, all or most of its profit going towards that organization and not paying out anyone the profit shares.
Mm-hmm.
But that is like, there's a million steps in between here and there.
Right. Right. And that's so definitely, but that's what you want to be writing, not the million steps, but to the there. What's the there? Yeah.
Okay. So this is the end state. What are all the things that we want to do? And so if it's something that moves us towards creating a global network of blank, then that's good. Or if it's something that, builds that community or builds the knowledge commons or any of the things that we're saying are the mission statement, and then going back to, for 3 years down the road and talking about board decisions, we go back to the mission statement and vision and say, this thing that we're talking about, how does that compare to the mission? Does it help further any of them? Does it hurt any of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and definitely in terms of breaking down, like if you start finding yourselves getting specific about how to accomplish the mission, don't waste the energy. Just put it down in the write it down while it's hot in the initial team accountability section.
Right. Okay.
I think we still have a difficulty with the actual mission of the vision is the abundant resources for anyone who has a project, right? If the project, they think it's OmniWin, everyone else thinks it's OmniWin, how do we help them facilitate creating it so we get the projects in the world? We're also project holders, so we come to the table with those two hats on. I'm here representing Jubilee and Jubilee's world, and I'm here representing solution raising possibly too. I don't want it to go away, but the bigger thing is for TogetherTec, right? So it's okay, am I here? Is my vote because it's going to hurt my project, it's going to hurt me, or it's going to better the world, right? And that's kind of going back to the mission is, okay, maybe something that TogetherTec does hurts reasons for a wiki election, but the bigger thing is the vision and mission, right? The bigger thing is this going to help future projects, and is this going to help that bigger so that we have more resources together? And there's a specific way, because the idea of creating a global net, the huge big Game B thing, right? There's a few projects that are looking to do that. And it feels like if that's holding that as the mission breaks it, if that makes sense. It's that we want to get so big keeps us from doing the next adjacent possible to actually get there, because we're so focused on, is this going to get us to the huge, beautiful world? But it's right, but is it building camaraderie right now? The four of us, it keeps showing up again and again. How do we invite more people to it that works? And I think we've talked about that enough that honestly, it's not even on us. It's we've created this space. If someone comes in and they don't feel comfortable because they're not part of a community, that's a different thing we can deal with. But I don't know. I think I'm just rambling on at this moment. But yes, having that as the big mission could hurt it, because it's well, wait, that are we working for TogetherTec? Or are we working for our individual projects? And we're very much in the tension of all of that, right? I'm here for my project, I'm here for me, and I'm here for the world. and I have to deal with where that fits. And the mission and vision is like about, we can keep bringing it back to that, right? Ooh,
Right.
Oh yes, you're right. I'm hurting Jubilee, but I still want to vote for it, right? Like I still.
Yeah, I'm hurting. So, in other words, okay. For instance, this mission, a world where abundant resources are available to pro OmniWin projects. Like you could say that's the mission of Protocol.love too, right? You could say that's the mission of the thing we were talking about earlier today, Jubilee. Like that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that's great that a whole bunch of different groups of people would have the same exact vision. So mission and how they accomplish that. Hopefully that's where we get some divergence, right? Hopefully the mission of how to accomplish that with this group is slightly different than the mission of how to accomplish that from this group, so that you can eventually hope for some synergistic results happening. So like TogetherTec, I mean, the name to me sounds like technology to bring people together, to help them more cohesively collaborate. Like I'm just throwing that out there, but just in tuning from all the things I'm hearing, but to try to create simple and clear mission statement.
Which is, I think there's something from what Raymond is saying, like it's not about the big utopian idea, it's about the path to get there and what makes us different. And that is the expanding the adjacent possible. It's hard to necessarily understand that is the path. It's like, right, we don't lay down 10 steps and then get to this beautiful future because everyone else is trying to do that and it doesn't work because it's like, right, left. It's like, there's just too many iterations and too many things and you're never getting to that big, beautiful idea. But how we get there, if we're continually looking at the adjacent possible and looking, because we don't have the resources to create the technology that brings people together at the moment, or we would be focusing on that instead of our individual projects. This is about how do we hold our individual projects and come together to create OmniWin solutions. So until there's, you know what I mean? Like it's like the path is in that tension. Like it's that we're here as project holders and creating OmniWin solutions and playing in that tension between our projects and the bigger project.
But isn't the path just the tactics that we use to get there? Like the whole expanding the adjacent possible just sounds like that's our tactic or our strategy of, okay, we know our big grand ideal that we're trying to go towards. There's an infinite number of things that we theoretically could do to maybe go towards that, but what can we do right now? And then once that happens, what can we do then? And then. And so it's always about taking that next step. So it's a tactic, but towards what? Because you could expand the adjacent possible towards anything.
Yeah, towards the vision, right? So the question isn't, is this advancing solution raising? Is this advancing Jubilee? As much as I'm going to wear both of those hats, it is this advancing TogetherTec? Is this creating OmniWin resource solutions for all projects instead of just my own, right? Is this going to, like there's that,
right.
It's not needing to plan out the entire adjacent possible, right? Because it's like we try this, it fails, it succeeds. It is just about continually trying the adjacent possible and trying it, right? Yep. Not even like that's part of when you plan a whole thing out. And this step 3 requires step 1 and 2 to go according to plan, and 1 and 2 never go according to plan. So it's like constantly being, what do we want and what can we do to get there now, right? And we love the big utopian idea. Every conversation.
So Jubilee, I would say that expanding the adjacent possible is a process and it's not specific enough for the mission. And I know we can't lay out the whole path, but I think for now, even though we want the mission to be long-term, I mean, right now our mission really is just to, the vision is resources. And in this case, I think we just need to list out and say what resources we're going to start building, to be specific.
Right, so that our mission becomes...
adjacent possible will be how we build on top of that. And so we could list that as a reminder saying, this is the process we're going to use to evolve our mission as we go forward. But in this case, it's not like a normal company where the vision is that much different from the mission. Ours are pretty close because our mission is specifically undefined because it's whatever the community needs. because we have a wider scope than most businesses.
Mhm.
I
So
mean, it sounds like our vision is the same: a world where abundant resources are available for pro-omni-win projects. Our mission is to be the organization that provides those resources, and then what we've listed in the mission are the resources that we're currently planning to provide.
yeah, and that was similarly to what that like the resources are the community, the information, and the technology, all of which we have some of, and we continue to grow it. And then it is, well, how do we grow that, right? And then it is going back to the vision and mission. And is this helpful to my project? Is it helpful to your project? Is it helpful to me? Is this, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's as simple as, I mean, at least it sounds simple. So your vision is a world where abundant resources are available to pro-omni-win projects. So each of you just say, so how do you create a world where abundant resources are available to pro-omni-win projects? If each of you answered that, how do you do that? Hopefully we'd get some mission juices flowing.
Okay, and I think that's my understanding of what this part is. So what I mean, here's my stab at doing it. So saying the main mission is to provide abundant resources to pro-omni-win projects. And then these are the things that we're currently talking about doing. This can change. This might end up going somewhere else. We're like, here's what we think that we can or should do, but it all goes towards this. So like the overall thing is our vision is a world. Even if we're not the ones to do it, as long as it happens, awesome. But as long as we're talking about an organization.
That's where this is breaking down. No, we're talking about you guys are the ones to do it. And I think that's what's missing is the willingness to make a declaration that we're going to do it and this is how we're going to do it. I think that's what's missing right now.
Right. Sorry, I thought that a vision statement was kind of supposed to start like general, like a world where, or is it a vision is we're doing this thing?
The vision is a world where.
Okay,
in
cool.
my template. And then the mission, I shouldn't even have written this because I was just trying to play along with what I think it was Bentley was saying.
That was me.
Okay, yeah, you were saying. So I just essentially rewrote the vision as a mission statement, which is didn't help. It didn't help. So the question is, how do you provide abundant resources to pro-omni-win projects? How do you do it?
Now the how, does that go in the mission statement? Because I thought that seems like the thing that we would always be adjusting. And, if we want to provide a community, okay, so what does that mean? Oh, turns out we just got this new, some new experts, whatever that looks like.
Correct. But the big ones, like how do you do it? Because like you got to declare something how can you enroll people to come join this mission if you don't know what they're doing? Like, how do you do, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right. So what's different in what we're doing than this? Is that, I guess I'm trying to see where the disconnect is. Because if we're saying that this, well, we probably want to, change the wording a bit so it's not just an obvious restate of the vision. If the goal is to figure out what role we're playing in all this, I think it's that.
Yeah. I think, okay. I don't think restating that in any other way is going to help. What is, so Ray, when we say build a knowledge base, why is that not a mission statement?
Where does it say that?
Well, we had knowledge base listed in there. So we had build a knowledge base, create a co-funding organization, create an organization for, and then do pedagogy, schedule meetings and stuff like that. Those were our three mission statements.
To build a knowledge base is definitely a mission statement. But I don't see that there.
So I don't know where it went. That's what we had listed. We had 4 things listed. They weren't sentences, but they were.
Hey, I just want to clarify too. This is certainly not my expertise. Like this part of it, like the mission vision is supposed to be something that you guys can work out as a team, and then I like the whole like magic of what I'm proposing is after we have this clear. And like anything I'm doing here is something any outsider could probably come into your group and do. Just to clarify, I'm bringing no super expertise to the table here, so forgive me if I'm fumbling and bumbling too, but. I would say yes, to build the knowledge base is definitely something as an outsider, I get some grasp of what you're talking about now. And you can
So yeah, I think
expand.
having those build the knowledge base, build the community. I don't remember what the other things were. The funding, right? The actual the actual resources, the knowledge, the funding, the people, and the knowledge base are basically what we are building. Everything we do, is it one of those three things? And then the adjacent possible is like, right, but we don't have the money and the people and the reason to do it. So it's like we're showing up for roundtables, right? We're doing it within our current means for it and within.
To create roundtables, right?
That's community, like to create community. I think if we had a better way to create community, we would be doing that instead of roundtables. But
okay. Who host weekly meetings? I mean, you're already doing that. Is this part of what this is? To host weekly meetings?
Aren't those all tactics towards building community, though? Because if we find that holding weekly meetings isn't working, we might scrap that. But we're probably never going to scrap building a community. That's always going to be a thing. We might cycle through tactics to do that. That's my
yeah, which is why I think that having our mission be, our vision is the omni-win, the bigger world, beautiful. And I think it's better that we don't care if we're the ones who do it, because we're very much in, right? There's competitors in this space, and if they get there first, awesome. We are doing ours the best we can. We're one of the people there doing that. And then it's like, okay, well, what we're doing that is the commons, that is what that omni-win solution is the knowledge, is the resources, is the knowledge, the resources, and the technology, whatever the other one was, people, the knowledge, the resources, and having it like that, like having it as, because it's like what we said, roundtables gets us closer to community within our current system. It's the best we have currently that we can do and show up to the people we show up to. So I think it is good to have it more generic, that we can say, okay, what are we doing for community? What are we doing for knowledge base?
Right.
What are we doing for this?
To host conversations for people to discuss the next adjacent possible step, right? That would be something.
Yeah.
So how specific are the missions supposed to be? Because like it seems like the things that you're hearing are the things that you're suggesting, I would think, are tactics towards it. So I'm trying to, I guess, figure out like the difference in saying just something kind of intentionally vague, like building a community, versus hold weekly meetings and do the project roundtables and send out a monthly newsletter and all the individual steps that we think might help build the community. Mm-hmm. Or are we just saying build a community and then maybe here's just some of the elements that it will probably have, like at the high level, like mentorship and
okay. So the object, to answer that question, we have to go to the objective of what we're trying to do with this document, which, since it's my template, I'll answer that from that perspective. The vision is that grand, vague thing, right? Have to be as vague as you want with the vision. Mission, the goal is to have somebody read the mission and go, oh, I've always wanted to do that thing. This is the place for me. Okay, and then if you want, when you get more detailed, that's in the team accountabilities. Like, actually, what could I do right now to start moving the mission forward? That's kind of like an accountability, like a very specific item. Right. And even that could be 10 levels deep, right? But so that's it. So the vision is totally vague on purpose. The mission is to something somebody can read and find that they're in alignment very quickly and easily. And its initial team accountabilities is the breakdown of really the detailed how to accomplish a mission.
Right.
Like this has to get done, this has to get done, this has to get done.
Right. So things like holding a weekly meeting, would those be in the initial team accountabilities? Because we're saying like,
and
we think that you need to do this in order to help, accomplish this certain mission.
Right. So that's where I went to more like to hold conversations.
Right.
More generic than weekly meeting, right? To hold conversation. Okay. Right. And then initial team accountability would be schedule weekly meeting each week. That would be an accountability, right?
Right.
So to hold conversations may be something that belongs in the mission, if I'm hearing correct. To create space for conversations to happen even, right?
Maybe it'd be easier to start with the more concrete things that we know rather than the more fuzzy ones. Like, have we already maybe it's already up there, but I guess we have a lot of writing up there now. So we have knowledge commons. Did we just want to put that in a, create and maintain a knowledge commons for OmniWin projects?
There we go.
That's more concrete. Or do you already feel like what we have is already good? I guess I'm having trouble following the document. Maybe we should turn everything in a gray color that was just brainstorming.
Yeah, or delete it. It's in the it's in the Google history,
Well, then can we delete everything above that? I guess I don't know which of these things on the screen are current.
Yeah, I liked it how it was before, how it was partially grayed out so we could still see it and see where the brainstorming was. That was a little more it wasn't all of our brainstorming, right? It wasn't every idea, but it was a little more pared down how we had it. Yeah, like that. I mean,
this section, I think we had cleaned out some of the gray, but yeah, like the vision has that.
A world where, exactly. So the knowledge commons, which is, I don't know if we're quite.
I guess that's hard because I think we're still in brainstorming mode, so we're not quite sure what's going to survive.
And I think this is the reason why we were going, to go on to the currency, I feel like is going to help. I know that this is in a specific way, but the reason is what we had to begin with is really our mission to keep doing the adjacent possible, because as beautiful as the common knowledge is, you guys are already working on your projects that are about commons knowledge, right? You're not going to stop that and we're going to create a wiki for Game B projects. It's just not going to happen. So what we're doing is the community, that's what is the adjacent possible? And then as we're collecting information, yes, we might add it to a database or might do that, but that's not really our focus. So until that's our focus, it seems, you know what I mean, counterintuitive. The idea is to keep creating adjacent possible solutions that bringing us more community, bringing us more knowledge, bringing us more resources. And do we have more, this year than we did last year, more this month than we did last month? And looking at those metrics, do we feel our projects are further on than they were before we had this connection? I do, even though I start new projects every week. I'm further on in my own project, so.
Well, I thought one of the reasons we were kind of bringing this all together is because we decided we were going to start to try and do some crowdfunding.
Okay, yeah, that's. So maybe if that's our purpose for this, then what? This feels more like grant writing then, where it's well, what is our first, what is it we're putting crowdfunding towards? Because that should be kind of what we're tailoring this towards, right? Is it the information database we're asking people to fund and then we'll put that together? What, is it the mentorship? Is it the roundtables? What is it we're actually looking for funding on? If that is why we're doing this. I know, yeah.
Personally, I think it's a bit too early for funding. I think we build the community first, and then we'll set some sort of a threshold for once we have, 1,000 followers or, 10 people watching the live streams, or just at least some number to say oh, okay, we've got an audience. Because unless we're planning on spending money, and unless we're really confident in the messaging for the crowdfunding campaign, I mean, I've only done one, but it was really hard to do it without an audience. Because then it's really down to your marketing and your ability to hook people in a single sentence, which, we've been talking now for about 35 minutes and we're still sort of not quite sure what it is that we're doing. I think it's when we have an audience and we have a specific obvious, in next step, the adjacent possible seems to be X and we need money to do that. And we have an audience that we can speak to. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to tell them that story. I think that's our first attempt at crowdfunding.
Okay, but it sounded that was very definitive. There will be a crowdfunding campaign, so that was good.
Once we have the audience, once the audience is there,
right.
And so that is we're playing in the adjacent possible. Even in this conversation, we're playing in the adjacent possible. That is still our mission. It's what is the next little thing we can do that gets us closer to that vision? That is within our ability to do. I think that is our mission. It's what is the next thing that gets us community resources or information that we are capable of?
But isn't that true for every project? That you always want to take you to your next step?
I sent you guys the document that got the gifted consultations document, right? And so perhaps all we're dealing with is the fact that you're not actually ready to do a document right now. Like I just try to identify in that document, I say there's 3 basic phases you go in. Phase 1, people have come together by some attraction field. They're in conversation with each other, and it starts to feel like there's something to be done. Like it seems like where you're at. That's phase 1. It starts to feel like there's something to be done, but you're not exactly sure what yet. It doesn't, right? So phase 2 is discussion begins to revolve around something more specific. There's more direction and specifics in the speech. An idea for a vision and or mission begins to form. So you're kind of in there, but not. So you're kind of between phase 1 and phase 2. I mean, the time to start the document is definitely when you're in phase 2. Like when you're starting to get some clarity around what exactly you're going to do.
And I feel like it sounds like we don't have clarity, but we really do have clarity. Like it's like what we are doing is that adjacent possible. I know that sounds very vague, and anyone reading that's going to be slightly vague, but it's already what we're doing. It's already what we've been doing for 6 months to a year is, that adjacent possible piece. And part of the reason we're doing this is we don't quite understand what is TogetherTec's umbrella and what is like a, wiki election. We know that's Adriel's, but like this new thing that's possibly being created, is that part of TogetherTec? Is it separate? And so it is coming together and kind of working through the fuzziness. So we have that, and that's where like we've spent a few weeks on the vision and mission. I don't think we're going to get any more clarity. I think it is about going on to the currency and going on to what does the rest of this look like, even with the fuzziness? Because I think we aren't actually as fuzzy as it seems. We're just fuzzy in a game A sense because it needs a very game A. This is the blueprint. You don't start building until you have the blueprint, and we're very much in the. Yeah, we have a blueprint for our own projects, and we're working through that. And we're also just doing the adjacent possible because we don't have the resources and we don't have the vision. And so the mission's like a little bit closer. Are we meeting? Are we getting closer? What is the next little thing we can do as it arises?
Okay. So yeah, I guess there's no. So I mean, I'm anxious to move on too, because again, this isn't really anything where I provide any special expertise or insight. I mean, if you guys know what you're trying to do together, or you don't. So I heard so much in there. So you know that you want to do this thing, but you have gone as far as identifying a name, TogetherTec, and so. It seems like if you're going to come together under a name, that you could define why you are coming together under that name at minimum. And it does sound like it's as generic as to create a space for conversations to happen around identifying the next adjacent possible. So we kind of go with that perhaps and call it that.
I think that actually works. Create conversations around the next adjacent possible, because that is what we are doing. And it's like, can we take this on yet? Can we take it on?
The next adjacent possible could be about anything, but we're specifically the next adjacent possible for OmniWin projects.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. Because that's your vision. So that's kind of inherent. So
this is not technology to bring people together. This is technology that people build together to accomplish things. It's not to bring people together.
Yeah, it's like we build together and own together.
So
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. We're getting somewhere. And since is OmniWin build together, own together. Is that somewhere anywhere?
I don't think so.
Create a sense of build. That's good. That's got to be somewhere. That was clear.
And I mean, my understanding is that that's kind of going to be a subset. Like, if Bentley decides to build Reason Score entirely on his own and own it, but it's still like, going towards the mission, I think he can still be a part of TogetherTec. Ideally, I think that we want to get to the point where really important technologies are owned by the cooperative. That's my understanding.
Right, but that's why he owns Together. Like that's why we're here, is because we don't want to give up our projects, yet we don't want it, like. And so reason score isn't part of TogetherTec unless it is part of TogetherTec, right? So that
This
is
is a-
once someone's ready to give it up and start, that is the point. Otherwise it's theirs and they're just part of the community, and that's fine. It's like plain in that. But if we create this is about creating something together that isn't any of those individual ones, but helps those individual ones, and that already it already is ours, right? If we create something and then it's like, oh, but just the 4 of us own it, then it's just another project that the 4 of us own that isn't TogetherTec, right? Like there's something about it is the commons, like it is something we own together, that is we created together. Now there could be percentages, right? Someone and I own what, I don't know, but that, yes, owning it together and building it together is part of what we are doing.
All right. It does seem like it could be as simple and clear cut. The mission in its entirety could be to create space for conversations to happen around identifying the next adjacent possible and providing abundant resources to pro OmniWin projects.
Works
That
for
could
me.
be the point of this. That could be exactly what you guys are doing. That makes sense. I understand that. Like that's something somebody can read and say, okay, I get what you're doing now.
All right. So should we bold that? I don't have the ability to
I'll
do.
bold There we go.
Okay.
All right.
So, all right. That's our mission. 45 minutes in. We did it. We did it after a few weeks.
And I got to go in 15, of course. But should I plan for more than an hour? If I should have, I'm sorry.
No, our hour. It's an hour. We
Okay,
kind of just do it for an hour and then move on to the next week. That's kind of what we're doing. And then the next
Okay.
week, whatever we finish, we start the next week.
Okay. So the next section to really grok it is a combination of like understanding what an influence currency is, and understanding what you're at and assets and decision making. So it's kind of like you kind of have to kind of hold all these in your brain at the same time. Influence currency is the number of votes one would have to say in a proposal regarding the stewardship of assets. So we have to steward something like, is there a domain name? Are there some Google Docs? Are there like, these are assets that probably exist. So we can start listing those things. And then we can also determine like, how have you guys been doing it? The object with decision-making and influence currency is not to invent the perfect governance model, which is something this group could spend the next 10 years doing. Well, I'm sure. But the object is not to create the ultimate governance model, but the object is to look at what's been working that keeps you guys coming back to these meetings together and slowly nudging things forward. Like, how has that process been working? Have you been in just full consensus about things? Has somebody kind of just taken the reign most of the time and made things happen, and then everybody else said, yeah, that's cool after the fact? Like looking at those kind of things, and that all kind of flows into, are we all having equal influence currency? Are we all doing everything actually by consensus, or is there somebody that's holding a lot more influence currency? That's just kind of the influential one that the rest of us are riding along with and providing feedback for. And then what is the actual thing that we want that has been happening, and that we can maybe put the slight amount of formality on to when decisions are getting made. Like, we've just been getting together each week, talking about stuff, and then saying yes, and then that happens. If that's the case, let's write that down for the most part. And then perhaps recommending that one more formal process to just document the fact that you did, in fact, have a proposal and resolve that proposal successfully to where you all agreed that that's what should happen. Just like a slight amount of formality to it. Hope all that made sense. Any thoughts on how you've been doing it?
It's like, how were we doing it? I think we have just been getting together for conversations, and we spend an hour on TogetherTec on the OmniWin solution, whatever that looks like. We're doing it every other week, and now we're doing it every week because we have something to actually do, which is the foundational document. And then we get together for roundtables on Saturdays. That is what we have been doing. The assets, I would say, are that are hour a week, but also the StreamYard we're on is part of under WikiLection. But that I have the TogetherTec.org, which I did just renew for $30 for the year.
Okay, that's definitely an asset. Let's get that one down together. Together. TEK.
Yep. TEC. Sorry. TEC. I don't know why I said yes to K. TEC. Yeah.
.org, domain name and website. Do we say?
Yeah. The website's not so great at the moment, but mainly just domain name.
Okay.
Still my vision from like a year.
Well, the question is this: if you wanted to make changes to that website, do you want to be able to just do that on your own, or would you be coming back to the group to say, hey, this is our, like, we steward this website together. I'm not going to make changes without full approval of this group, but through our decision-making methodology that we establish here.
I think it's basically, I mean, right now, like I said, it's my mission, my vision for old TogetherTec up there. I am down with anyone changing it and having it be more of what TogetherTec is actually doing right now, but that I can't change it. I just can't. That's not within my wheelhouse. So,
but I think we would want whoever is changing it to check with the group.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
And then I think there's also the Facebook group is probably another asset.
Yep.
Yes, the Facebook group is an asset. Yeah.
Well, if we could, there's usually a number Facebook gives you can grab.
It's actually called TogetherTec because it's groups TogetherTec. It's the Group B project. Game B projects is TogetherTec. Is what is that what you mean?
Yeah, which
Like,
Facebook
do you want the
group?
URL?
Yeah.
It's does someone else want to grab the URL? Because I'm not gonna be able to. I'm not gonna be able to copy and paste. But it's like /groups / not solution raising. TogetherTec is the name of it.
Solution raising TogetherTec.
I might be able to actually do it now that I'm thinking about it because
I just stuck it in there.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
And there's also the YouTube channel. Let me grab that.
Oh,
Nice.
yes. Look
There
at
we go.
us. We have more assets than
Now
we
we're
thought.
rolling. Okay, so now in general, anything listed here, we understand we're going to use some decision-making methodology, approval by the group over any changes to these assets, anything that happens to these assets. How that exactly looks, we get to determine. So don't get caught up in that for now. But the fact is, as opposed to, this is mine, I can do what I want with it, we're saying these are things that we recognize as shared assets, that we're not going to do anything without going through the collective. Merely by writing it here, we're saying that.
Sounds good.
Cool. So how do you think you've been generally making decisions so far? Has it just been probably informal consensus? That's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, we've been showing up to this meeting, and then whatever we have a agenda, which we honestly don't even fill out anymore. That is like if something comes up, you put it on the agenda, and then we talk about it during this time. Like the TogetherTec.org renewal was coming up, and I was like, should I keep it or should I get rid of it? And we decided to keep it, and figured out I didn't have to host it anyway. So that it's part of a verbal conversation is basically what we've been doing.
Yeah, which basically is informal consensus.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So this is a slightly older version of the template you guys use, and there's been a bunch of updates. But basically, what we can do is list your names and an influence currency amount, which sounds like it's probably been the same. Like everybody has had equal influence.
Yeah, I think we can do equal splits right now.
Yeah. And then I use 111. You can really, it could be 8. It could be, it could be any number. If it's the same number, then it's equal influence, right? So if you guys just want to list your names and put 111, you can do that, or change the number to whatever you want.
Keep it the same, and I have 100% of the vote. I'm gonna rule over everything.
Yeah, right now Jubilee's got it all because that's the only name on there.
I don't have access to the docs, so.
It's fun. I didn't even see my name was spelled wrong. I love it. I was like, yeah, there we go. It's spelled up at the top, his name, Radek's name.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, awesome. So one of the other things that it's really nice to be transparent about at this time, like for the shared intentions of OmniWin, is like if somebody else found out what you guys are up to and loved it and wanted to be part of it, how would they do that? How would they get influence and say, hey, I like what you're doing with that website. I think would want to steward it too, help steward that website. How would they ultimately gain any influence over that website?
So the current process, I think, would be they would join the Facebook group and show up to one of our Friday meetings.
There we go. So we should write this. Join the Facebook group. Show up to a Friday meeting.
So it's actually it's like keep showing up to Friday meetings. That's our only, like, come to 3 of them and you're basically on the board.
We might want to specifically say board meetings.
Show up to Friday board meetings. Yeah, because we do sometimes have different.
Yeah. So one thing that's in the so what I'm gonna call this the primary, or we can call it the board if you want, but generally I call it the primary council. We can totally call it whatever you want. It's totally up to you. And then so that exists to steward. This is one of the adjustments in the new template, which is pretty crucial. So I go councils. I'm gonna go primary council. Description. Stewards of all assets listed herein. Okay, so that's the job of the primary council. And the primary council, in order to make decisions, has to have influence currency in the protocol.love ontology. You have to have influence currency in order to make decisions, and you have to make decisions in order to steward assets. Keep showing up to Friday meetings. Then what would happen? Would one of you eventually say, hey, I think this person should have influence currency?
And I think that is where we have in no way done this yet, because it has just been that simple, like, you know, like someone just keeps showing up, and if there's someone who keeps showing up, they either fall off, they stay. But yes, that I think that aside from the 4 of us, it might be helpful to have an actual vote, right? Is this person, if someone shows up and continually as actually, like if Carrie came, right, and is continually showing up and taking on action, that's very different than someone showing up and just telling us what to do. That there is like a,
okay, well, I mean, you can
vote on it?
Yeah, you could totally do that, right? Somebody says, hey, this person's been showing up. I think we want to give them influence. Or you could just say, every time you show up for a meeting, you earn 1 influence currency. I mean, whatever you guys are into.
What feels right to everyone else. I mean, I feel like, yeah, if we're at, 111 is a weird number to be at, but we keep showing up. I also don't feel like, you know what I mean, if Bentley can't make it one week or Retta can't make it one week, that we're taking theirs away and then I get it because I show up. But like up to a maximum of 100, that if, yeah, you have to show up to 20 in order to get up to that, right? You get 5 per or something like that might be helpful. But it also, I like math, so maybe it's just because I like math.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that we'd actually keep that up to date personally. So I would vote against it solely for that reason.
Okay, cool. So it could just be
so they keep showing up. I'd say they have to go to 3. How does 3 sound? And then after they've been to 3, we can put up for a vote. Do we say this person's still on board? And then they get equal rights, right? They would become 1/20th, 1/5. Well, 20% is what I was trying to say of it if we voted them in, right? And that would be kind of how it goes from there. Ask them if they want to be part of it. If they show up to 3 and they want to be part of it, then we vote on yes.
Now, another option, which I think might be available, given that we've listed out councils, is to kind of almost have like a secondary council, or I don't know. Like it's kind of meant to have some amount of voting and this and that, and people start there. And then if, they show up and they actually make votes and, they contribute in that way, then at some point they can join the primary council.
There you go, stuff like that. So you can think about that. Because the other thing is you can have a separate currency, right? This is the primary council influence currency, but you can just have what we would generally consider an equity currency, just because it's equity. I'm doing this the really fast version because we're out of time. But equity, it just represents contribution, for lack of more time to explain deeper. So you could just create an equity currency that you get one of these currencies every time you show up to a meeting, which does not give you influence inherently, but we're still recognizing you. And then later on, you can say, hey, anybody that's earned X amount of equity currency, we're going to convert it to X amount of influence currency or whatever. But these things give us the building blocks for to follow this specification of defining these things so the developers can come in and write this code for you lickety split, because it's all part of this grand framework, and there's all the expertise is available to work within that framework.
I think this is a good place, like you said, you're at the time for us to end here and kind of sit with this over the next week that yes, is this, because if we vote no, we don't want this person on, what happens to them? Are they not here? Or is there that secondary council? Is it just they don't have this? So anyway, sitting with that and coming next time with the ideas of how could this work? How could someone join us on the council? Could there be a secondary option? Do they need to attend 3 times before, is there tiers to this, and what do those tiers look like? Well, I don't think we'll have a definitive answer when we show up because we haven't had a conversation, but having that be what we do between now and next week. Does that sound good to everyone? I'm going to go with Bentley said yes because I can. Okay, let's think about it, YouTube. Cool. So Raymond can get going, and thank you, Raymond, for joining us as well. Goodbye, sure, YouTube and Facebook.